hit noon, so I'm going to send us live. All right, we are going live. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon now. Thank you so much to everyone who is tuning in, joining us on your lunch break to come hear a little bit about first-time home buying and what to expect as a first-time home buyer, ask your burning questions, and learn a little bit more. So thank you to everyone who is joining us. My name is Caitlin. I am the Community Engagement Officer at Habitat for Humanity of Greater Sacramento. We are a nonprofit housing organization dedicated to providing affordable home ownership and home repair opportunities to working families in our region who might not otherwise have the opportunity to purchase a home on the traditional market. So we are a nonprofit organization. We build all of our homes from the ground up with volunteer help. Typically, it is a COVID year, so we are not necessarily building with volunteers right now, but welcoming them back soon. And also repairing homes in our region for low-income seniors, veterans, folks on fixed incomes who need a little help to stay in their homes and thrive safely. So we are so glad that you're here today to join us to learn a little bit more. Our goal is really to make home ownership, affordable home ownership available for all. And so we're glad that you're here to learn a bit more about becoming a homeowner yourself. And we are putting on this webinar in conjunction with our Habitat Young Professionals crew. It's a networking group of young professionals who support Habitat. And we'd love for you to hear more and get involved if you're interested. But while we're kind of having folks filter on in, why don't you go ahead and pop in the chat for me on a scale of 0 to 10, how comfortable are you with the topic of home buying? 0 being, I've never thought about it before, I'm just starting to explore, and 10 being, I am ready to start putting in offers on homes tomorrow. I've done all my research and I'm an expert. So go ahead and let us know in the chat whether you are from a scale of 0 to 10, how comfortable you are on the topic of home buying. I'm going to give us just another minute for folks to filter on in as we get started here. And so if you're just coming in for the first time, again, my name is Caitlin. I'm the Community Engagement Officer at Habitat, and we are asking folks to pop into the chat on a scale of 0 to 10, how comfortable are you with the topic of home buying? 0 being, I've never heard about it before, I've never thought, and I'm just starting to do my research, and 10 being, I'm ready to buy a home tomorrow. So go ahead and pop those on in. And while we get folks rolling in, I'm going to pass it over to Erin to introduce our panelists. Oh, I see we've got a couple of 3s, 5s. Okay, some folks who are a little comfortable, a 6, a 1. Okay, so folks all over the scale. So really exciting to see those folks coming in. And I will be your chat moderator during the day. So if you have any questions for our panelists, go ahead and pop those in the chat and I'll pass them along as soon as we can. Thanks so much to everyone who is responding, and I will go ahead and pass it to Erin to get us started.
Thanks, Caitlin. I'm really excited to be here today on behalf of HYPE and give the young professionals in our greater Sacramento area some information on the home buying process. This is one of the types of events that we've really excelled at since COVID. And so, yeah, I'm excited to continue that, but I will pass it off and introduce our panelists. Jorge, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure, thank you. Thank you very much, Erin. So hello, everyone. My name is Jorge Gonzalez. I work for NeighborWorks Sacramento. We are also a nonprofit organization, and we provide housing orientation, education, and resources for first-time home buyers, but also already established buyers as well. I've been with NeighborWorks for 3 years now. I'm a housing counselor here, and I'm ready for your questions.
Awesome. And we also have Lorna Westrix. Lorna, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name's Lorna Westrix. I am the broker of record for Guide Real Estate. Guide is a progressive, upscale, modern brokerage that has offices in Midtown, downtown, and Roseville. And we support our agents with the utmost modern technology and tools and education so that they can serve clients like yourself. So my role as broker of record is educating our clients on the latest laws, best practices, contracts, and DRE compliance, and all of the legal issues that they need to be aware of. And I'm happy to be here today.
We're happy to have you. And last but not least, Daniel. Daniel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again for allowing me to be on this panel. I work for Wells Fargo Home Mortgage, been with the company for 13 years, helping first-time home buyers, break into the market with a lot of different programs that we offer to assist in that financing opportunity there. So I'm looking forward to answering any questions you have from down payment assistance programs to your standard conventional FHA, VA loans. Thank you for coming.
Awesome. Well, we are really excited to have you, and I feel like we're in very good hands. So, Caitlin, are we good to kick off our Q&A portion?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to start with a general question that we have, which is, what is the first thing besides savings that someone should start doing when they're thinking that they might be interested in buying a house? Jorge, do you want to take this one first?
Sure, definitely. Because before you even think about buying a house, it is real important to think about purchasing capacity, right? And purchasing capacity depends on income, on credit report, and overall the job experience as well. Some lenders would be a little hesitant to offer a loan if you have less than 2 years of experience in industry or a job. But the most important thing besides savings that I would advise you guys to look into is your credit report. Credit report is really important because that will let you know how much time you really need for preparations before talking to lenders. Some of you guys, especially if you are already sure that your credit score is perfect, you have no late payments, everything looks fine, right? But similar people might need a little bit more time to cure a little bit some late payments. Maybe they have some past due amounts or collection accounts, and that usually takes a little bit of time. So that is the first thing that I would advise you guys to look into, your credit score. Get familiar with them. And by the way, you could always order your credit scores from the 3 different bureaus annually, right? You could do that. I'll send information to our panelists here, a director, so that you guys have some more information on that.
Awesome. Daniel, did you want to jump in too?
I have to completely agree with Jorge on that one. Obviously, knowing that you have a good work history for 2 years is typically what we require. But your credit report, you should know where you stand credit-wise prior to going in to getting pre-approved. As Jorge, I'm sure, was going to send out to mention, you can always check your 3 bureaus at annualcreditreport.com. You can see what's going on with your credit history, because there might be things you just don't know or unaware of that you need to address before going into it. And conversely, if you don't have that history, there is opportunity as well where you could potentially build alternative credit to qualify. So, but your credit is probably your first, second, and third with savings. Absolutely.
And I'd love to ask a question here. Daniel, is there a kind of a target credit score or a range of credit scores that lenders are looking for?
There is kind of a rule of thumb, right? I mean, for Wells Fargo, our minimum score for conventional loans would start off at 620. However, different loans like FHA, VA might be able to go down a little bit lower with another broker or another lender for FHA, VA. But you're looking at anywhere from 620 to 680. I consider that, average scores. Anywhere between 680, 740 is a good rating. 740 and above would be an excellent credit rating.
Awesome. Well, this kind of kicks off with our first section, which is financial questions. So I'll keep going down this route because I think there's a wealth of information here that we can share. So another question we have is, what expenses will come up in the home buying process aside from the price of the house? And which party is responsible for these costs? So some of these could include closing costs, taxes, homeowners insurance, inspections and appraisals, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are different costs associated with the loan. Some of them are negotiated during the contract, and I'll let the broker just tell you about that piece of it. With regards to the loan, you're typically going to have your your processing and underwriting fees associated with that loan. If you're looking to impound your tax and insurances to make that part of your home payment, that's another thing you have to be aware of that might be coming into play. Title and escrow, we are an escrow state, so there'll be title and escrow fees associated with your purchase. And again, some of those can be negotiated during the home purchasing process. One other thing that you should also be mindful of after the close of escrow, where a lot of people tend to forget, you're always going to have your property tax bill that's going to come due. But when you close on your first home, you're going to get a supplemental tax bill that comes later on in the process. So they have to be aware of that's coming down the line. once they buy their home.
I have a question that's come in from chat that I think would fit really well in this section, which is when someone finds a home that they're interested in purchasing, maybe they already know a little bit about their purchase power and they want to apply for a loan. What is that first step? Do they reach out to someone like you, Daniel? Do they need to get pre-approved? What does that look like?
Yeah, the first step you should always do is to get pre-approved, even before you go out looking for a home, because in this market where things are so competitive, at the very least, you want a pre-approval letter. So it's very simple. You reach out to the loan officer, broker, whoever you want to use. They'll walk you through the pre-approval process, be it an online process through them, or if you need to meet face-to-face, if you're more comfortable. Once you get that loan submitted, then your next step would be to get an underwritten commitment. I definitely recommend taking that extra step, getting that loan commitment from the lender, especially in this market where it's competitive. That way you're one step ahead. You can take care of all your personal conditions prior to finding the house, and then you're just focused on the property piece.
And Lorna, from a broker's perspective, do you want to jump in and, what is the correct process for a buyer that might be interested and maybe has identified some properties that they would be interested in but isn't pre-approved yet?
They're not pre-approved yet. Then that again is going to be the first step. With the real estate agent that you are working with, they typically have some experience with several different mortgage brokers or loan officers. And that's one place to start with a referral. You don't have to use that particular person, but that is absolutely your first step. And then Aaron, to catapult on Daniel's comments as far as the costs associated with purchasing. So of course there are the closing costs that Daniel mentioned, escrow, title, and so forth that can be negotiated in the contract. But the buyer also has to be prepared to pay for their inspections up front. That's a buyer responsibility. So a home inspection, typically at a minimum as far as doing inspections, and depending on the size of the home and amenities, that can run anywhere from $400 to $700. Also, a pest inspection is common. And when people hear pest inspection, if they're new to the buying process, they think, oh, is this about, ants and critters and things like that? Well, that can be the case, but a pest inspection also looks for water issues and any dry rot that could be caused by termites. So that's important. And then there are other inspections that buyers can choose depending on the age of the home and the location. So I would prepare a buyer to have costs out of pocket for those inspections to be $800 or could be to $1,000. And then Daniel, what is the appraisal fee at this point in time that we would add
our
to
appraisal
that?
fee? Yeah, our appraisal fee, depending if it's a conventional or jumbo, but a conventional loan, we're looking at about $495 for an appraisal.
Okay, so there you go. So out-of-pocket costs, you'd want to have your buyers be prepared to have $800 to $1,200 for those upfront costs.
Yeah, and on top of that, don't forget, you might need to spend a little bit of money on moving, right? Sometimes we tend to forget about it. Maybe you could have family and friends help you out, but buy them some lunch and stuff. But always watch out for unforeseen expenses. Try to have a little bit extra for that as well.
Good point.
Thank you, guys.
I'd love to jump in with an audience here that I think fits, because Lorna, you started mentioning inspections, and one of our audience members asked, how can I make sure I'm selecting a home that's a smart investment, and what should I take into consideration beyond a home inspection? So I know I heard you mention a few things like location and age of the home. Are there any other kind of key pieces that folks can take into account when they're looking for the perfect place?
That's a very big question, Caitlin.
Yes.
So first of all, what a buyer will want to do within the home buying process, they have a 17-day inspection fee or inspection time period. And that is their time. Not many people think about it in, I'm just hiring these home inspectors. Well, that's also the buyer's investigation period, a research period on their own. So it's the time for the buyer to spend time in the neighborhood to make sure the neighborhood is conducive to their lifestyle desire, looking at traffic. So is it a good value? Caitlin, I'll give you an example. They may be close to a freeway, right? And spend time and see if that noise is onerous that could affect that home value in the future. Train tracks, things like that. So besides the actual property inspections, you want to look at the neighborhood elements to ask yourself, is this a good value for the long term and somewhere that I will be happy to reside? And then also your real estate agent is providing for you we call it shortcut in the business, the comps, or the comparable sales and closings. So you work with your real estate agent very closely to look at what current home values are on sold properties. And that is what you take into consideration when you're making your purchase price offer.
So Lorna, are you saying within that inspection period, a buyer has the opportunity to change their mind potentially once they do that other investigation?
Yes, they do. So within that 17-day time period, they're investigating all of the things that I mentioned. And at the 17 days comes up, and the 17 days is from the date the contract is accepted. At that point, they either remove their contingency or they cancel based upon their investigation period and inspection period.
Awesome. And we'll get more into that details, I think, a little bit when we start to talk more about the process. But we have a few more financial questions that I want to make sure we hit. So another good one that came in is, what percentage do you have to have as a down payment in order to avoid, well, I think we should probably just start there. This question is in order to avoid mortgage insurance. What will the amount of my mortgage insurance decrease if I put more down? And what happens if I can't put 20% down?
So to answer your question, the basic rule is anytime you finance over 80% loan to value, you're going to have mortgage insurance. So the magic number is 20% down to avoid mortgage insurance outright at the beginning. From there, every increment of 5% will have a different mortgage insurance factor associated to your loan. So if you put as little as 3 to 5% down, you'll have one figure. From 90 to 95 is another, from 85 to 90, and so forth. Now, depending on the type of program you're into, be it if it's conventional or FHA, that mortgage insurance may or may not be permanent. So if you're under a conventional loan, as soon as you pay the loan down to 78%, the mortgage insurance will drop off, okay? If it is an FHA loan, that mortgage insurance is a permanent fixture of the loan. Doesn't matter if you put 50% down, 10% down, or if you hold the life of the loan, the mortgage insurance stays on until you refinance out of that product. If you are a veteran, first, thank you for your service. But on VA loans, there are no mortgage insurance premiums. So you can finance up to 100% on a VA loan with no mortgage insurance.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And we had an audience question that might fit here related to 20% down payments. Someone says, I'm trying to weigh the downsides of doing a smaller down payment in terms of insurance interest. You touched most of that, but it follows up with, should I get a second mortgage?
You can, if the lender that you're going through has, subordinate lending that would like split it up from like maybe doing an 80-10 and then you put 10% down, you can avoid mortgage insurance that way. That is a possibility you could go through. Mm-hmm.
Jorge, do you have anything to say on, your percentage of down payment? I know for a lot of first-time home buyers, 20% down seems very overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Is it worth considering purchasing if you don't have the 20%? What are the pros and cons of mortgage insurance?
That's a really great question. And to be realistic, right, you will, well, depending on your situation, you might not have the money because appreciation changes with time. So what is really important to take into account as well as other resources that you could use. We have resources that could customers or clients could use both at a local and state levels. Some really popular programs such as Cal FHA could offer you assistance for your down payment, could offer you assistance for closing costs, depending on your situation and other factors. And that's something really important as well to take into account. If you do not have enough money for down payment or closing costs or other fees, there's always resources. Every city around Sacramento has some sort of assistance program as well. Let it be inclusionary housing, let it be loans, let it be other type of programs that might allow you to purchase a home under market value. So the most important thing that prospective homeowners could do is do a little bit of research online, check out websites from the city you are interested in purchasing, and check if they have some sort of program that you could use in addition to your savings. And something real important, people tend to forget, you could use more than one. You could have 2 or 3 different layers of financing, and depending on the lender, depending on the situation, could be feasible, could be possible. We have to do a little bit more research. I sent some resources as well to Caitlin a few days ago. So if you're interested, check that out.
Absolutely. And just so everyone knows, we will send all of those resources and links to more information to everyone who attended today. So all of that will be at your fingertips.
And Lorna, before we, oh, sorry, Daniel.
Yeah, sorry. One thing I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention last time when speaking about the mortgage insurance. Aside from if you're doing a conventional loan, there is such a thing called lender paid mortgage insurance. Okay, where it's worked into the loan itself, so you're not paying a separate mortgage insurance factor on the loan.
Good.
Lauren, I was just going to ask, with a lot of the first-time home buyers that you and the agents in your office work with, do you feel like the majority of them do put 20% down, or what types of things are you seeing, and what's common for first-time home buyers? Oh, I think you might be muted.
Uh-oh. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Is that good?
Yep.
Okay. First-time home buyers, we typically see doing an FHA loan, which requires less down payment. It does have mortgage insurance. Credit score is a little more flexible on an FHA mortgage, as Daniel indicated. So first-time home buyers, you do see FHA quite a bit.
Awesome. And then another question that I wanted to touch on is, you know, if you really don't have the funds, I know, Jorge, you mentioned some programs that are available through the state and city programs, but, you know, are there other ways, maybe with gift money, that people could come up with that? And if so, what does that process look like?
So if you want me to start first. Yeah. So depending on the type of product, the program itself, if they're conventional loans, by all means, conventional and FHA, you can use gift money for down payment or for closing costs. As Jorge mentioned, one of my favorite programs out there is the CalHFA Down Payment Assistance Program, where the California Housing Agency, you know, will finance up to 97% on the first, do a simple interest, silent second, and if you need it, again, you can have some assistance towards closing costs. So that's a really good product to look into if you're a first-time home buyer. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think that covers a lot of our financial questions that I have. I have here, you know, the drawbacks on different types of loans, and I feel like we've touched on that, and a little bit on the fees that are covered. So I think we can move on to process-related questions. So the first one, Lorna, I think this is great for you, is how do I choose a real estate agent?
That's a fantastic question. Typically, one of the ways people choose a real estate agent is out of a referral from friends, family, work associates, where you're asking your circle that you know has purchased or sold a home, how is your experience with your realtor? Because out of that personal experience, you are more likely to be able to find a person that you will have trust in. So I would ask for referral from family, friends, work associates, and ask questions of how it was working with that person. The other way, a lot of people, although COVID times, this has changed, but find a real estate agent that they then commit to is at open houses, because and COVID will not be here forever, and hopefully things will ease up in the next couple of months. But when you visit open houses, watch the realtor interact with others, ask them questions, and if they offer to follow up with you, take them up on it and meet with them. So those are ways that people identify realtors. You can also research online. You can look in the area that you are focus to purchase and see if there is someone that works in that area very frequently. So there are area specialists, although that's not a critical component, but it's one way. Another way is to research online and look for agents' ratings. But that's how you initially choose a real estate agent. Erin, would you like me to talk about once you meet an agent, possibly interviewing an agent?
Yes, please.
Okay. I feel it is incredibly important that when you are choosing a real estate professional, that you're prepared with questions to ask that real estate professional so that you are able to commit to them 100%. What I see sometimes, especially with newer buyers, is they will just call off of a sign of a property that's for sale, or they'll research online and try to connect with someone. And then after they meet people, they're not committing to a particular realtor. Once you identify a realtor, that realtor will work on your behalf and be committed to achieving your goals. So when you meet with a realtor to interview them, what you want to do is be prepared and ask them questions such as, do you have a particular area of expertise, both in location or in your repertoire? Do you particularly work with first-time home buyers, higher end buyers? So area of expertise, ask them if they will explain the home buying process to you. See how adept they are at walking you through that process. I'm sorry, my eyes are going going on me after my second Zoom meeting for the day. One of the things also that is really important is you want to ask them their strategy for having an offer accepted. In our current marketplace, you have heard, I'm sure, that it's a very competitive marketplace, or a seller's market. So what is a seller's market? That means instead of a buyer's market, it means that the sellers are at an advantage for obtaining the maximum price for their property because of supply and demand. They're receiving multiple offers, and many times a home is being sold above the list price. So you need to have an agent that is adept at knowing how to put together an offer in a way that it will be accepted. So ask, what is your strategy for having an offer accepted? The other things that I would ask is how many successful transactions that they have completed. Now, there are some newer people in our industry that are very educated, very well poised to serve. So that question is, don't give all the weight to that question. What you want to give weight to is how prepared are they? Is your agent also sending you a contract summary ahead of time? Are they sending you documents to review prior to you get to the point of submitting an offer? So you want to ask, again, what's your strategy? And then what documents can you provide to me to educate me so that I'm prepared when we do submit our first offer? I would also look at a personality fit. You want to look at communication style. Is this someone that not necessarily like you, but someone that perhaps thinks differently than you do? Some of us are more emotional, some of us are more logical. And yes, being personable and kind and caring is important, but also if the person is not that warm fuzzy, but they are incredibly professional and prepared, that might be a better personality fit for you. So that's just kind of a personal side tip.
Yeah, I think personality is definitely important. You're spending a lot of time and it's a big decision. So you want to make sure you get along with that person. Jorge, is there anything that you would add on this topic?
Yeah, actually, you guys mentioned most of what I had in mind.
Awesome.
Something real important as well. Don't forget, I have this question all the time, and is how much or will the seller pay for a real estate agent? And that's a really good point for first-time homeowners to know, right? They work on commission, right? The buyer does not necessarily pay anything until the close of escrow, and so just make sure you guys to know you don't pay your real estate agent. They will get paid eventually, but not right off the bat.
Hmm.
To clarify that just a little
Yes.
bit, is typically what happens when a property is listed for sale. Then the seller and the agent brokerage that is listing that property, then they have an agreement. The seller has an agreement to pay the listing brokerage. So that is the majority of the time how the real estate agents get paid. It's not the buyer's responsibility, right, Jorge? Just to
Oh no,
expand on that.
and thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
Perfect. So another question we have that I'm sure we could probably spend the entire hour on if we wanted, but we'll try to give a brief overview on is what exactly does the process of putting in an offer, how does it work? At what point are counteroffers permitted, and is this in this process, and by which parties? So I guess what I would say is once, you have a client that's identified a property, we already know they have to be pre-approved. Once we're writing the offer, Lorna, what does that process look like between the time the offer is accepted and the time you're getting the keys and moving in and the house is yours?
Okay, perfect. So from the time the offer is accepted, the very first thing is to make sure that you have a full loan application to your lender of choice. So you want to do that per the contract within 3 business days of acceptance. You also are obligated to put your earnest money deposit into escrow within 3 days of when the contract is accepted. You have 17 days to perform all of your inspections. So your real estate agent will help you in scheduling inspections. So that needs to be done right away, because in this crazy market we're in, some home inspectors may not be available for a week or 10 days. And if you only have 17 days in that inspection period, you want to have the opportunity to get those inspections back and review them very thoroughly prior to removing your contingency. So, and then as I already did mention, you want to be doing investigations on your own and experiencing the neighborhood, making sure there aren't any issues that you feel would make you feel that it wasn't a good decision for you in the future. So the home inspections, your loan approval's in, you've paid for your appraisal to be ordered. Then my suggestion is you always meet the home inspector at the conclusion of their inspections to review in person. You don't ever want to be surprised. And in this Zoom and electronic world that we live in, which is a wonderful tool, you cannot replace being with an experienced inspector actually pointing out things in the home that they want to draw your attention to so that you understand what they're speaking about. Once the inspections are done, you have the opportunity to ask the seller to make repairs. In the current marketplace, again, the seller's in control, so they are less receptive right now to accommodate a buyer's request for repairs. However, it is a common practice in our business, especially for items that are truly non-functional, that are serious issues. You would not be giving a long list of things such as do touch-up paint or minor maintenance items. So once you identified the items that were important to you, let's say you had a non-functioning hot water heater or a HVAC. These are the type of issues that are reasonable to expect that they're in good working order when escrow closes. You would review these things with your agent, and you would let your agent know that there are items that you would like to request the seller to repair. The seller's not obligated per the contract. The seller is not obligated to make repairs. When you go into a contract, the contract clearly states you're purchasing in an as-is condition. However, it is typical in our business that requests for repairs are made on serious items, such as electrical and heating and things like that. Then, once all the repairs are completed, if you've made them, or you've done all your inspections, you're satisfied that this is the home for you, at the 17-day time period, you remove that inspection contingency. Also, Daniel or Jorge, the appraisal is typically also removed in the 17-day time period. So the appraisal of the property comes in, hopefully appraises at the contract value without any conditions. And you've verified that with your lender, and you can remove the appraisal contingency. And at the 21-day time period, your loan should be, hopefully, Daniel and Jorge, fully approved. And the 21 days is where you are obligated to remove your loan contingency. These contingencies can have extensions for valid reason, but that's the time period. Typical close of escrow time periods are around 30 days. Although right now, again, things are busier. What are you seeing, Daniel and Jorge and Aaron, yourself on contracts times 30, 40-day close of escrow from the time the contract's accepted?
More or less, yeah,
I think on a purchase, I think on a purchase transaction, yeah, 30-day close of escrow is a reasonable time frame. Lauren, I just wanted to touch base on one thing that you mentioned regarding the home inspection. Sorry about my light here.
That's okay.
Once you have a property identified, if it has issues or concerns with, let's say, major repairs, mechanical issues on the property, or even your pest inspection just discovered a lot of, dry rot and repairs that are needed. If the seller is adamant about not making those repairs, there are financing options available for that as well. They're called renovation loans that you might be able to, negotiate some extra time with the seller to get that type of financing if you're really attached to that home, you're not willing to walk away.
Perfect. Thank you, Daniel. That's a great clarification. And then also to let you know, on especially FHA or VA loans, not as frequently on conventional loans, and appraisers sometimes can mandate a particular item to be repaired as a condition of the appraisal. So that can happen, can occur at times.
Lorna, I'm rereading the question and I want to make sure that we touch on, they specifically asked about counter offers and at what point those are permitted. So I'm not sure if they mean, before official offer is accepted or once escrow is opened, if there's the opportunity to renegotiate. And I know we've talked a little bit about the competitiveness of today's market and it being a seller's market, but do you want to give a little insight into, that process of when negotiations take place between the buyer and seller?
Very good. So I separate that out into prior to going into contract. So I'm going to switch from where we're speaking about right now, and then after going into contract. So prior to going into contract, your agent has submitted your offer on a property, and the seller has a particular amount of time to respond, which will be in the contract that was presented to them. It's typically 3 days from when the offer is presented to them, but working with your agent, you may shorten up that time period or lengthen it depending upon how many offers are on the property. So the offers are submitted. If the seller has the typical 3 days per the transaction or per the contract, then after that 3-day time period or any time during, the seller can make a counter offer to you as a buyer. So the counter offer goes over to you, goes to your agent, then to you. You discuss those terms, see if that works for you. And if you accept the counter, you have a transaction. If you do not accept that counter, if it doesn't work for you, you can either not move forward with the purchase, or you can let your agent know that you would like to counter the counter from the seller, and you submit what is called a buyer counter offer. And this is very, very typical. So you work with, and sometimes there can be buyer counter offer 1, seller counter offer 1, 2. It can keep going for a little bit. And it could not only have to do with price and terms, it might have to do with how long the escrow period is. It could have to do with how long the inspection period is. So the counters are not always on price or finances.
I do have an audience question that I think fits really well here, which is, does the process differ with new home construction versus existing homes? So if you're buying potentially from a developer versus a previous owner.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm going to backtrack really quick, Caitlin, about negotiation after an offer has been accepted. Is that okay?
Of course.
So if an offer has been accepted, okay, and now you have discovered things in the home that perhaps the seller doesn't want to repair, that you're hesitant about that cost out of pocket, and you would like to ask for a credit in escrow or reduction of price, that would be done during the escrow process and prior to your removing of contingencies. And that would be done, requested of the seller on an amendment to existing terms. Of course, they do not have to accept that, but that would be done during the escrow process. In this current market, that is a tough thing for to get accepted. Once you're in contract, the seller's expectations are you're going to perform according to that contract. Yeah. So new home industry. Actually, I was in new homes industry for many years, over 25 years. So I know this process very well. When you go start your search for a new home, hopefully you have already found a real estate agent to work with you and represent you, because you would want to bring that real estate agent that you have committed to into the community the first time that you visit. And your agent then registers you, and they're able to represent you and probably get compensated in the form of a referral fee for their representation and all the work that they have done on your behalf. So so that's as far as being represented by your agent. Because if you go into a new home community and interact with the builder staff there, and your agent hasn't been with you, you can't bring your agent after the fact and have them represent you and look out for you. So there's something that's different for you to know. And then also the contracts are different. The new home builders have their own very thick contracts. So paperwork is different from purchasing a resale home. And the process is different because the home may be completed or it may be under construction. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Is there anything else there I need to expand on?
We did receive a related question, it may be for a deeper discussion at the end, because it says related to new home questions for things like manufactured homes, when you're taking the cost of land and the home, is that done together or separately? And maybe that's a financial question for Daniel or Jorge, kind of when it comes to land and a pre-manufactured home. Is that one loan? Is that multiple loans? What does that look like? And if that's a deeper question, we can address that at the end as well.
I'm going to leave that to Daniel or Jorge.
Well, I guess it depends on where you start off at. If the home, or if you find a piece of land that's bare, then it's potentially two separate transactions. Okay. But if you find a manufactured home that's on a piece of land on a permanent foundation, it's treated like an ordinary home purchase. So it's all one transaction at that point. You're not financing two separate deals.
And Daniel, just to clarify, if you find a manufactured home and it's in, let's say, a park or on a piece of land that isn't owned, can you explain how that is also different?
Well, so if you'd have to find a lender that's going to be able to lend on that type of property. Wells Fargo, we don't. We can't lend on leased land. You have to actually own the land that you're purchasing with the improvement on it. So if you find a manufactured home, let's say in a mobile home park, you'd have to find specific financing that would just finance that type of property.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going off of that. Yeah, financing is slightly different. I think it's Title I loans for that.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, it's really, really important to know the details about it. Because then again, there are additional fees for maybe parking if it's a mobile home. And also depreciation. This is something really important to take into account because mobile homes usually depreciate and do not gain value or much of it again. That's something really important as well. And insurances are a lot more different, especially if it's an older unit. It's a little more difficult to insure. So look into all the details about it because it may or may not be, the best choice for a specific client or customer. In Sacramento, at least, most of the areas that I know of, they're age restricted as well. So then again, that's something important to take into account. But yeah, do your due diligence, do a little bit of research, and find out more.
And I would say too, if that is a route that you think you're interested in going, it's definitely a question that you want to be upfront with the people you're working with to make sure it's an area that they have expertise in, because it is a little bit of a different process.
Exactly.
And we have two questions that I'd love to interject here because they relate to our overall conversation and they're related. One is in a seller's market, we keep saying it's a seller's market, supply right now. How can a first-time homebuyer or especially a young professional make a competitive offer? How can we be competitive compared to other buyers? And on a sort of related note, are there any age limitations? So for example, if someone is under 25, are there any specific requirements, increases, liabilities that some specific age would need to worry about? And whomever would like to take this question. It's a lot, it's a meaty one.
That is a lot. As far as age, I'm trying to figure out if they're referring to the financing portion. So I'm gonna table that or ask for some clarification there. And it is difficult. It is really difficult in this market. I go back to having a professional agent that is going to present a very professional offer. And as a buyer, you want to be, before you make your first offer, it is that pre-qualification. What I actually recommend is a full pre-approval, right, Daniel and Jorge? That the client has actually been through preliminary underwriting. That helps to make your offer look stronger. So in that pre-qualification letter versus pre-approval letter, that does make a difference. The other thing is that you have your verification of funds available. So it's ready to go. You have already have your bank statements ready to verify the funds with your account numbers blocked out. That is something you can do. Discuss with your agent what are some of the things that buyers are doing in the current market to make their offer competitive. As a brokerage, we don't recommend letting go of inspection contingencies or making offers that take away appraisal contingencies. That is not something we do because we're looking out for our buyer in the long term, but your agent will be able to tell you some of your choices and strategies for having your offer come to the top of the stack. So I think there's such a huge importance on the professionalism of your agent and how that offer is presented.
Exactly. And to add a little bit on that, it was in the news actually not too long ago in SoCal. So many young people were trying to purchase a home in this really difficult market. They were waiving out inspections. They were not, making a lot of efforts to get the most that they could basically out of the purchase in order to make their offer competitive. And as Lorna mentioned, this is not something that you should do because you want to make sure that the purchase, whatever it be, is something that is worth the money. It's something that you want to keep as an investment. More than buying a home, remember guys, we're buying a house and that it's a business enterprise. It comes with a lot of conditions and losing your investment is one of them. Make sure that whichever offer you make, it's something professional, something that you have thorough consent to.
And there was a part of the question, Aaron, that I did not cover, but I think it fits in here in the importance of the investigation process. So during that 17-day time period, the seller is obligated to provide to you seller disclosures. And the disclosures are called a transfer disclosure statement and a seller property questionnaire. And they're obligated to give that to you within 7 days of acceptance of contract. That is one of the other important elements, and I'm sorry I left that out, but during the escrow period, that you want to review very thoroughly the seller disclosures to see if there are any red flags or concerns there for you. And some of those items, hopefully you receive the seller disclosures before the home inspection is scheduled. And if there are some red flag items, then you are able to bring those to the attention of the home inspector. So seller disclosures are a very, very important part of the process. And again, this electronic age for all of you potential buyers listening, where disclosures will be sent to you electronically and you're looking at them and just reading them. I highly caution you, you need to read each one. And if there's a yes answer to any of the seller questions, such as with prior leaks at the home or electrical issues, you want to make a note and have your agent ask for more detail on those items and what was done to rectify them to protect yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome. Caitlin, I do have a couple of more questions, but I know we're coming up on our time and I want to make sure that we have a chance to answer everybody's questions that are coming in that are on the call. So if you have questions, I'll open it up now. And if not, I can finish up with a couple of the ones that I had here.
We've been really doing well with covering what comes in as we go.
Awesome.
So I will just let our audience know with this last 8 to 10 minutes or so, please get us your burning questions. We'd love to address them.
Perfect. And in the meantime, let me, I have kind of a fun and unique one here. Somebody had the question of, is it better to buy a house before or after you get married? I think that's, a common step if people are getting married. They're also going to buy a house. Are there pros and cons to doing that either before the wedding or after you're married from a legal perspective, financial or otherwise?
It has quite a few dimensions to it. And the obvious ones is, well, from the financial perspective, it makes sense that if you have a spouse with income, right, that broadens your purchasing capacity, right? And you could buy different range of property prices. Another important thing to take into account is, are you getting married while buying a house? Because now we have legal issues with that, especially with names and last names. So whatever you guys decide to do in terms of, doing it alone or with someone else, just make sure that you follow, you have all your documents and do your things you have to do, your marriage certificate and everything, because there might be some instances in which the last names change and, it brings a little bit more complication to the process. But, as long as you guys have everything and don't have any issues with it, it shouldn't be much of a problem. However, maybe you guys have a little bit more of a experience with that. So what do you guys think?
Can I add something really quick?
Yes, please.
This is not related to the marriage thing, but it does kind of bring up kind of a tangential point. If you're young and you're just getting ready and you're looking to buy a home, one thing that you need to really consider is your debt to income ratio. Okay, so don't go buy a car if you're looking to buy a house, because that's the number one killer of loans, typically, right? If you have something that works right now and you really want to buy a house, be mindful of the debts that you're going to occur prior to buying the home that could really work against you. We have in the loan industry typically about a 45% debt to income ratio that will qualify with, and that's based on your gross income. So even that is a pretty high number you have to be aware of, right? Because in reality, you have a net income after taxes are taken out. And so that's a little bit different. So just be mindful of that when you're looking to buy a home.
That's a really, really great point. And follow-up question is, do all kinds of debt apply to that debt to income ratio? So student loan debt, auto debt, medical debt, are there any exceptions or do they all apply?
Medical debt can have an exception to some extent. Other than that, yes, your student loans, even if they're deferred, depending on the program and the lender, they have to hit you with a certain percentage of that deferred amount. So be mindful of that as well.
Of course.
And then also keep in mind, just on a separate factor, when you go into the house and you're thinking about how much can I afford, you're going to have utilities as well. So don't just look at, this is my housing payment. There are other expenses in living, right? Groceries, utilities that you have to be aware of.
Exactly. And that brings up a real important point. It's actually one of the most important ones, but the least talked about, and that is a budget, right? And so budget does not necessarily mean that you have to limit on things, but you have to know how much money comes in, how much money comes out. The most important thing for sustainability, more than anything, is make sure to have enough disposable income per month that you can use for savings, unforeseen expenses, and other things, because the market changes, taxes change, and the payment might fluctuate a little bit along the way. And it's real important for you guys to have the flexibility to adjust to it. If you purchase a home with payment you can barely make, that is a problem, and you would need to look into your budget and adjust a couple of things. So yeah, that's a really good thing to mention. Now that if someone wants to add other persons to the application, that's something as well to take into account.
And you mentioned kind of budget, and if you're barely making those payments, we've heard that phrase being house broke, right? Where you can afford your home, but you have no leftover cash for any other, costs of living. Or so is there kind of a rule of thumb or a percentage of your gross income that you might think about your housing costs, like kind of that sweet spot to come in at?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and there's no solid answer for that. It all depends on their specific needs and their household size as well. For a family household of like maybe one or two persons, having $1,000 or $1,500 disposable income per month is actually pretty healthy. But for someone who has children or pets or some other obligations, it might be slightly less, but it doesn't mean that it's not enough, right? Here, the most important thing is to work out the numbers, run the numbers, and make sure that some money goes for savings more than anything, and some money goes to your accounts to take care of payments and other things. Then again, some things will change eventually later on because people buy appliances, furniture, things, and that's okay. But that might add a little bit to the debt to income ratio later on, or just might make things a little more like tight in terms of budget. So yeah, that's real important. Just think about saving a little bit. Think about what is possible more than anything. But yeah, being house broke is something that is situation could be avoidable. It's just that you have to really think about it, plan ahead, and talk to some family friends who already have a house. That would give you an idea about how much the money spent, how much money they need to save for things, insurances, and things like that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, Erin, is it okay if I
Yes, please.
It's burning up in me to offer encouragement to everyone. We do keep talking about this seller's market and that it is difficult to get an offer accepted. However, what I want all of you to know is that markets fluctuate, things change. Part of the reason, so that you understand why we're saying that this is a seller's market, is that a lot of people have been staying in their homes longer. So there are not homes coming on the market. And the last year, part of that is due to COVID. That's one of the reasons. So I want you all to be encouraged. Use this time to button up all your finances, be prepared with a savings pad, be knowledgeable and ready when the time comes. Commit to a real estate agent for the long term, because they will set up a search for you in your targeted areas and price range, so that you know immediately when that home comes on the market and you're able to act quickly. So use this time to educate yourself, prepare yourself, identify what your amenities you want in the home and the area, and commit to a real estate agent. And if it's a year from now, that's okay, because you'll just be in a better position to make the right decision. So please don't be discouraged.
Oh, I love that.
Markets
Yeah.
go up and down and change all the time.
That's a great note to end on, of encouragement. And I will just say that I know that this was a lot of information. We will be following up with a little recap, as well as some of the information that we talked about, and contact information for myself and all of the panelists. So if there is any questions that you wanted to follow up with, or maybe you aren't comfortable asking here, or maybe we didn't get to, please feel free to use us as a resource. I also have to give Hype a plug, and if you're interested in seeing our upcoming events or following along, we have some exciting volunteer networking events coming up in the future. Please follow us. You can find us, I think all of our social tags are at Greater Sac Hype, HYP. So follow along. If you do want more information on how you can join, Caitlin and I are always available, so send us an email and reach out. I would love to speak with you. And yeah, thank you guys so much for your time today. I think that this was awesome. And yeah, I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but this was really, really great. So I appreciate all of our panelists as well as the participants, and we will be in touch with all of the information on where you can find us.
Wonderful. We had no additional audience questions, so great, perfect time to wrap. Thank you so much, Lorna, for that encouraging ending. Jorge and Daniel, for your time as well. Again, find more information about Habitat Young Professionals or Habitat at our website, habitatgreatersac.org. And otherwise, we hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon. Thank you for joining us on your lunch hour, and look out for our recap. Hope you all have a happy home buying.